Whispers beneath the tide. The fog over Wraithmore was a living thing, curling around the coastal village like a jealous lover. The sea battered the crumbling docks, and the air reeked of salt and secrets. John Ravenwood, private eye, stood on the rocky shore, his trench coat soaked, his eyes heavy with a decade of regrets. A scream had torn through the night, and now a Bodiamos the fisherman lay sprawled, his chest carved with cryptic symbols, spirals and jagged lines that seemed to writhe in the moonlight. John had come to Wraithmore chasing redemption. A case gone wrong years, Aguis, partner Eliza's blood on his hand shed, left him a husk. This case, he swore, would be different. But as he examined Amos' corpse, a sharp voice cut through the gloom. "You're blocking my shot, detective." Ivy Stryker, Wraithmore Herald reporter, stood with a camera slung around her neck, auburn hair whipping in the storm. Her sharp tone had earned her enemies, but her instincts for truth were unmatched. She was after a story to rebuild her career after a scandal that still stung. "Heard you chase ghosts," she said, smirking. "This town's crawling with them." "Stay out of my way," John growled. But Ivy's defiance was unshakable. The symbols on Amos matched 2 other murders. In the past months, a dock worker and a barmaid, both found at low tide, both marked with the same eerie carvings. Sergeant Hargrove, the local cop, called them accidents. John smelled a cover-up. Ivy smelled a Pulitzer. They formed a reluctant alliance. John's dogged grit paired with Ivy's knack for making people talk. Their first lead came from Silas, a twitchy dock worker who whispered of a cult meeting in the cliffs, worshipping something beneath the tide. His hands shook as he spoke, and by dawn Silas was dead, another body, another set of symbols. Wraithmore's fog seemed to tighten around them as they dug deeper. Crude cops stonewalled them, Enforman vanished, and the village's storm-battered shores felt alive with menace. John and Ivy's partnership was a powder keg. She called him a washed-up cynic. He called her a reckless liability. Yet, in the dim light of the Salty Gull Tavern poring over case files, they glimpsed each other's scars. John carried Eliza's death like a millstone, but Ivy's scandalous source she trusted, who sold her out, had cost her everything. Trust was a risk, but the killer left them no choice. The murders followed a pattern, a nut at the third crime scene. Read, "The tide hides what the heart reveals." John traced the symbols to a maritime legend about a sea spirit demanding sacrifice. Ivy, scouring dusty town records, found a chilling cycle. Every 10 years, Wraithmore lost 3 souls to accidents at sea, each marked with symbols. The last cycle was a decade ago when Eliza died. The revelation gutted John. Eliza had been investigating Wraithmore's docks when she drowned. Her death ruled an accident. No symbols were reported, but John now suspected Hargrove's men had scrubbed the evidence. Was the killer taunting him, luring him back? Ivy, sensing his spiral, pressed harder. "You're not the only one with ghosts, Ravenwood. Let's finish this." Their hunt led to the cliffs, where Silas had pointed them. At low tide, they found a hidden cave, its air thick with decay. An altar stood at its heart, carved with symbols, surrounded by candles, and bonus human and animal. Footsteps echoed. Behind them, Hargrove, gun drawn, his face twisted with zeal. "You should have left it alone," he snarled. "The tide demands its due." Argrove wasn't the killer, but he was complicit, protecting a pact Wraithmore's elders made long ago. Sacrifice to appease the sea for prosperity. The symbols were prayers, the murders, rituals. The true killer, he said, was chosen by the tide. Before John could press him, a shadow moved a cloaked figure, eyes glinting like obsidian. The chase erupted onto the storm-lashed shore. Rain blinded them as John and Ivy pursued the figure through the fog. Ivy's flashlight caught a Facile, the village librarian, her quiet demeanor replaced by a feral grin. "You can't stop the tide," she hissed, her blade etched with symbols. This showdown was chaos. Eleanor moved like a wraith, her knife slicing John's arm, blood mixing with rain. Ivy, quick and fierce, tackled her, pinning her against the rocks. "Why?" Ivy demanded, voice raw, noirish. Eleanor's laugh was a wave-breaking. "Raise more lives because of me. The sea shows me." She spoke of voices in the tide, guiding her to kill, to carve, to protect the village's bargain. John, clutching his wound, saw madness in her eyes, saw something older, darker, beneath the waves. No cult, just Eleanor, driven by delusion or force beyond reason. They disarmed her, but Eleanor lunged at Ivy, forcing John to fire. She collapsed, blood seeping into the tide. The storm roared, as if grieving. Argrove, cuffed and broken, confessed to covering up the murders to save Wraithmore's prosperity. Ivy's story exposed the village's leaders, shattering their pact. On the pier, days later, the fog lifted. John and Ivy stood in silence. The case was solved, but redemption was bitter. Elisa's death was no accident, part of the same cycle. Ivy's story won acclaim, but Wraithmore faced rain-fishing dried up, tourists fled. "Did we do the right thing?" Ivy asked. Her edge softened. John lit a cigarette, staring at the sea. "We stopped a killer. That's enough." But the tide whispered behind them, and neither could say if the darkness was gone. Wraithmore's secrets, like the sea, waited for the next soul to dive deep.